Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to say that our heart goes out to all people who endure the unspeakable human toll of war, and we condemn aggression in any circumstances, and we join the world in praying for peace. This comes out from the letter that was sent out yesterday from John Mueller as a blog to all PNG employees, and I just wanted to echo his thoughts. So now we begin. Thank you everyone for being here on our monthly webinar series to celebrate International Women's Day. So I'm very excited for our guest, but before I introduce her, I want to tell you a little bit about our monthly series and who we are. This is a monthly series where our goal is to connect members and provide enriching content, where we hope you learn something new and leave you inspired. And we do this by leveraging the expertise that we have within the network. All of this is part of a bigger mission of the PNG Alumni Network, which is a nonprofit founded by former PNG employees to share ideas, talents, and resources with each other, our communities, and our philanthropy efforts. With more than 35,000 registered members in 45 chapters around the world, the PNG Alumni Network is officially recognized by Procter Gamble, and we connect via global conferences, local chapters, industry events, and online content like this one today. Our nonprofit foundation also supports economic empowerment initiatives in communities around the world. Every other year, we have a global conference. Last year, we had one in November that we had virtually, very, very successful, our first one. And the next one is planned for the fall of 2023, hopefully fully in person in Washington, D.C. So I invite you to hold the dates and learn more as time gets closer. Now, for the webinar today, a couple of notes on the logistics. This is your webinar screen where you will see the content that we'll be sharing, polls, slides, etc. Also, you'll see your control panel on the right or the left of your screen where you'll see your line is muted to avoid those distracting noises. But we still invite you to interact with us through the chat function where you'll be able to ask your questions, and I'll make sure to see them and to ask them towards the end of the presentation. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go through all of them. Sometimes we have many questions, so I apologize beforehand if I do not get to yours, but I'll definitely try to do my best. And now I'd like to go through some polls, and this is just for us to see who is here with us virtually today. So let me launch the first poll. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me launch the second one. Thank you. Third one. We're almost there. And the last one. Okay. Thank you, everyone, so much. This helps us in understanding our audience and defining topics for our upcoming webinars. So we appreciate you sharing. So I'm very excited for a very special guest today. Thank you, Isabel, very, very much for being with us here on this very special day of International Women's Day, where I would like to share some great news with everybody watching. The PNG Fund for Equity and Inclusion is offering its first ever challenge to the PNG Alumni Foundation, matching up to $50,000 for all new donations during today, International Women's Day, the movement to break the bias, and in partnership with the Women's Leadership Forum. As you may know, the PNG Alumni Foundation creates economic empowerment opportunities for those in need around the world, providing marginalized communities sustainable paths to prosperity. As a registered nonprofit with hundreds of volunteers around the world, the PNG Alumni Foundation provides grants to some amazing organizations, funded through contributions by alums like you and me. We need your help to meet the PNG Fund grant by end of day today, March 8th, which is International Women's Day, as I said, and your donation will be doubled during that time. Donations can be made at pgalums.com/donate, and the foundation will be able to accept donations in many forms from around the world, including wire transfer, credit cards, appreciate stock, donor advised funds transfers, and more. So very, very exciting news about this challenge happening today. Definitely I'll be joining the challenge. And with that, I pass it on to you, Isabel. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Ilyana. It's really an honor to speak to you today. And I will now share my screen.
There we go.
Very good. I assume you can see it now.
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful. So yeah, thank you again. It is very special times, difficult and challenging, but still I think female empowerment is and continues to be of central importance. So thank you for having me today on this topic. Now, perhaps before I go into my speech, a little bit about myself. So I'm married. I have 2 children who are teenagers. I currently live in Hamburg in Germany, but I lived in Frankfurt, in Geneva for 5 years, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and now since 4.5 years here in Hamburg. My professional background is that I've started in '92 in PNG in purchasing or procurement. I've had the majority of my life a purchasing career, from directs to indirects, marketing, media, everything. As I said, I lived in Geneva, was a guinea pig and then pilot and then role model for location-free working already in 2001. And then moved to Cincinnati in 2008 and worked after that in supply chain in Germany as the managing director for supply chain Germany, Austria, Switzerland. So also did 5 years with the customer side versus the previous time with the supplier side. During that time, as you can imagine, relationships were at the center of my work, and I love relationships. But I didn't know how much you can actually also get out of networking and focused networking. And so this speech is about networking and why I believe in it. Now, before I go there, let me move to the next slide. I want to share with you 5 hacks on female empowerment. The first one is, I think it is so important that we speak positively about each other. I actually read a quote today, which I want to read out to you, which says, "You are not my competition. You are my sister." And if we think that way about other women, and we recommend them, we support them, we speak positively about them, I think we can really empower women more in business and into leadership positions. Secondly, if you're a leader in an organization, if you're influential in succession planning, really critically review the career path, whether they are women or parent friendly. I have in my career experienced that some of the policies, whether it was the move policy, the relocation policy, was made by men for men who have a trailing spouse, wife who takes care of everything, and they can go the next morning to the office and function. Well, when I moved to Cincinnati with a 3-year-old, I couldn't go the next day to the office and function. I had to really settle my family, and the policy was not necessarily made for it. Same is true for career paths. I realized when I went into the supply chain role in Germany that the career path was focused on having an expat assignment as a reward or an operations assignment as a reward or as a stepping stone in the career, usually as the third step in the career, so around 30, which is usually the time when women decide to have a family or want to have a family. And I don't want them to choose. I want them to be able to have both. And therefore, I challenged our own rules that we have ourselves put in place. And I looked at the female and I sent some of them on expat assignment or into an operations role much earlier in their career before they had children and were perhaps a little bit more confined to a certain location. Third, I think it is also important that we give everything a more female face. I don't know about you, but often when I'm invited to conferences, I look at the brochure and it's a lot of black and white pictures of a lot of men who are the speakers, very few women. So at the beginning, I thought, oh, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm not going to events where only men speak. But then I thought, well, what can I do to change and to change the face of, if you want, women at these events and even in society? And so I did call up some of these conferences and said, I was so close to not coming because it seems you only have male presenters. I'm willing to either come and speak myself, but then I expect also to be on the main stage and or I can recommend other female leaders who could come and speak because I want you to demonstrate more female power on stage. And that is one thing you can do. Yeah. Secondly, what I then did is I also went at a couple of events where I was part of the organizing committee, and I talked to the communications team. I talked to the photographer and I said, look, the last time you took pictures and the last time we made a brochure afterwards about it, it was women who were in conversations listening to a guy. It was not a woman on stage speaking. So could we please have a fair share, perhaps a little bit more than a fair share, of female engaged in conversations, so that we also show that they are not just a nice, side, but they are actually in the center. So just question everything. Yeah. My fourth point is sisterhood, pay it forward. Invest in mentoring yourself and help and push women through the glass ceiling. Help them ask the right questions. Push them to dare. Push them to lean in. And in terms of networking, this is what I want to focus my presentation on now. Now, let me start with just a definition of networking, because I think it is important. Networking is the exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions. Specifically, it is the cultivation of productive relationships. It is the cultivation of productive relationships. So let's go into it. And now I will actually become more personal, because what did I do? I took personal pictures, and I will tell you by the pictures my journey from before I discovered networking to after I was a big fan of networking. And therefore, I want to tell you a story about a girl who discovered the big world of networking. And I want to do that at the main example, which is the American Chamber of Commerce in Germany, where I became one of the board of directors and then afterwards executive VPs. So when I moved back in 2013 from Cincinnati to Germany, I succeeded Ottmar Dewald, who some of you might know. And Ottmar had a few external engagements. And one of them was, he was our representative at the American Chamber of Commerce. And because I have lived in the US, I had studied in the US, actually my son was born in the US, I really wanted to foster the transatlantic partnership. So I said, Ottmar, you know, this is the external engagement I would really like to take over from you. So I joined the AmCham, roundabout in the board of directors, 50 people, very, very few women, and a lot of, let me say, experienced male leaders in Germany. So let me now share with you my learnings, and I will go through them. First, just exchanging business cards is not enough. You need to tell a story with it. You need to contribute. You need to impress. You need to find a way into their heart and into their minds. So here's my experience. First board meeting I go to, I don't know anybody. Yeah, and I looked at the list of attendees beforehand and thought, you know, could I know, or at least could I know the company so that I can approach the person? And then there was one guy, the head of a big chemical company who is a big supplier to PNG, but I didn't know him. And I thought, oh, you know, this could be a nice lean into. So in a break, I went to him, I approached him and I said, hey, you know, my name is so-and-so, and I wanted to meet you, and I work for PNG. And he kind of looked through me. We exchanged business cards. We talked a little bit, but I could tell he was not interested and he moved on. So then the next meeting comes, again, a board meeting, and they were very hierarchical usually. There was one, the president and the managing director who were talking, and everybody was nodding and signing and then off to dinner. And for some topic, we had a little debate, and I joined the debate and I made a point. Yeah, for me, a point. But apparently this was very rare that people made points, and even more rare that a woman made a point. So during the next break, so this was my second board meeting, during the next break, guys come to me, surround me, talk to me, are interested in getting to know me and in having further conversation on the point that I made. And this guy from this chemical company comes to me and says, you know, I thought this was so great what you said, and I wanted to introduce myself to you. My name is so-and-so, and here is my business card. So you can tell I had left no impression with him in the first session. So therefore, I'm saying just exchanging business cards is not enough. There needs to be a context. You need to contribute. You need to raise interest. And then the last picture here is me in the group of the guys who then invited me to sit with them for lunch, when the first time I was rather by myself. Now, my second recommendation is have a plan. You see here on the top right, my dear friend and co-combatter, Gabi Hessig, because she was also, or she still is, in the American Chamber of Commerce. And what we would do is first, we looked at the list of attendees of events. Who is there? Who do we want to talk to? What do we want to do? And then we have a plan. Yeah. And what you can also do is, when you're going somewhere alone, not with somebody you know, but you're going somewhere alone, you can think about, who would I like to meet? You can contact the people actually up front via email, or you could ask somebody, can you please introduce me to so-and-so, because I'm interested to connect. So be proactive and put some thought into why you want to attend a certain event. As an example, I also took our colleague Heidi Piper to one of the, or several of the AmCham events, and she wanted to exchange with the head of Ford Germany, because cars are assembled products, diapers are assembled products, and they met and they exchanged, and afterwards our teams also had an exchange, and that was just a great way of, you know, leaning in, meeting people, making connections, and getting something out of it. Third, stand on your own feet. Why do I say this? So when we moved back to Germany, and I joined the AmCham for PNG and immediately board and so on, my husband, also interested in networking and in meeting people, also wanted to join the AmCham. So he joined as a private member. Whenever we went to evening events or weekend events or cocktails or speeches together as a couple, what happened? We went there as a couple, we met either a man or another couple, and the guys started talking to each other. Oh yeah, what do you do? What do you do? Oh yeah, and then I was completely out of it. I was not relevant. And I observed this for a couple of hours, a couple of events, and I thought, well, I'm not here to just stand next to my husband and not be engaged. I want to be seen as for my own. And so I said to him one time, I said, my dear, we have to separate when we go to these events. So we can go there together, but then I'm on my own mission. You are on your own mission. I want to talk to people. I want to meet people. You want to talk to people. You want to meet people. We can get back together. We go back home together, everything. But I want to be kind of appreciated for myself. And this is a business event. And so I'm going here as a business person. And that's what we did, and it worked actually quite well, but it was a funny realization. The other thing I realized is, you see this on the second picture. So when I joined the executive committee, which was just the top 7 people, and I was the first and only woman there, I thought when we had events that the guys who knew everybody and were, you know, totally into it, that they would introduce me. But that didn't happen. Yeah, so we got seats always at the events when we had a very important guest speaker in the first row, and we were perhaps sometimes introduced, but usually they put themselves first. They approach the person. So here you can see one of my colleagues with the US Ambassador Emerson, greeting, talking, and so on. And I'm standing by the sidelines. And I was a little bit taken aback. I was unhappy about it. You know, I would say I had a few female reactions. And then I thought, well, then, Isabel, take destiny in your own hands and do it like they do. Just go. And so this is what I then did. Next time an important person came, the speaker, I went immediately, held out my hand, said, hi, I'm so and so, great that you are there, and so on, and was in the conversation. Or when one of the guys was having a conversation with our guests, I would just join the conversation, sometimes even in a friendly way interrupt by introducing myself. But this is exactly what they did as well. So I thought, according to my previous kind of standards, I thought this is rude what I'm doing. But they didn't think so, because this is how they operate. And this is what they used to. And so they without problem, they welcomed me in the conversation, and it worked out really well. So that was a learning. Don't stand back. Actually be present, introduce yourself, take care of your own destiny. And in meetings, also like here in conferences, speak up. Now let's get to the fourth one. And these are the ugliest pictures, but I'm still going to show them because they also tell a story. The story is that for me, networking is like a slot machine. You never know what comes out of it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because networking is not reciprocal. It's not I give and I get immediately something back. You give, and it could take some time until you get something back, and it is always surprising. So what happened here? When I was leaving PNG after 25 years, I had a 5-month sabbatical before I joined Beiersdorf as their CPO. And I really enjoyed these 5 months. I mean, fantastic sabbatical to have. And I did a lot of things, but one of the things I did was also to engage more with networks in Germany. One of them was a network called FIDA, which is a kind of lobbying organization to get more women into board and supervisory board positions. There was a very interesting conference in Berlin. So I was living in Frankfurt, in Berlin, for a day. And I thought, oh, I have time. I go, fly in the morning, fly out at night, all fine. Well, nature had other plans. What happened is that there was a huge storm. And you can see here the flooding of the streets. And the plane couldn't land at the airport where it was supposed to land. We couldn't disembark the aircraft. There were no cabs at the airport. It was really like crazy. And when I was standing in the bus that took us from the plane to the terminal, I was telling, everybody was talking about what are they missing because we were 4 or 5 hours delayed. And I was talking about this event. And then I heard another woman who you see on the bottom right, also talking about an event. And I looked over through the bus to her and I said, are you also going to the FIDA event? And she said, yeah. I said, great, me too. Okay, so let's join forces and let's see how we can get there. And then we went on this adventure tour through Berlin by bus and everything. And it took us at least 3 hours to get to the center of Berlin, to this event place. And when we got there, when we got in, we were, as you can see here, soaking wet. I could actually pour the water out of my shoes. And we approached through the hallway, we approached the conference room. And what did we hear? The final applause. So we have completely missed the day. And then the doors open and there were some after work drinks and some food. And the two of us were like in this mood. Okay, we were actually beyond it and we were having fun. And a lot of people joined us and asked, why are you so wet? And this is so funny. And actually, the organizers and the management of this organization also joined us. So we had made great connections to the board of that organization. And I met somebody there who was a good acquaintance with a supervisory board member of Beiersdorf, the company that I was joining afterwards. And she had then recommended me and invited me to come and speak at a big event for Beiersdorf. So my message here is, you know, I went to this event because I wanted to network. I didn't think it would turn out this way. Actually, when I heard the final applause, I thought it was a waste of time. But then I met, by coincidence, somebody who then helped me get in touch with somebody else who then helped me with something else. So I think networking is really going around the corners, and it is always an adventure. So let me get to my 5th point. Give, and the get will come. Give, 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 give. Help people, think how you can connect them to other people, be open, go contribute. And I'm sure something will come back someday, perhaps not directly, but some round it will come back to you. And what I think is most important in networking is you need to also enjoy, and you need to enjoy giving without expecting to be paid back. And what you see here is the picture with the president of the AmCham when I left, because I left PNG and moved to Beiersdorf. I left also the AmCham in the Exco, and he was thanking me. And, you know, I mean, it went that far that he even had a matching tie to my outfit. My 6th point is be demanding when you need to. And the example I want to give you is the following. So when I joined the AmCham in the board of directors as a representative of PNG, we often funded some events. So that year we funded the big Thanksgiving dinner in Frankfurt. And I was actually, we came with the family, and I was put in the back of the room at a table with the security guys of the consul general, while there was another table in the center with the consul general and some other important people where other people were sitting. And I was thinking, you know, I was really upset. I was thinking, why do they put me at this table, and why I'm not there? I'm actually one of the people who are sponsoring this, and so on. And instead of just being upset, I went to the person who organized it and I said, look, you know, I just want to understand, and I also want to give you feedback that this has not been my expectation, that I sit at the side table and not at the front table. And my expectation for next time is that you sit me at the main table. And actually, I also asked her to be seated next to the speaker or to the VIP of the evening. And that worked. You just have to speak up, because sometimes they do this not knowingly what it means for you, or they're not even thinking that far. But you need to speak up, and you need to be demanding. So in the end, the consul general became a personal friend, and we had some great parties together. Let me come to my 7th point. This is also about giving back. Think about how you can create networks yourselves. So on the left-hand side, what you see is at the AmCham, I have created a young professionals network. I thought the AmCham was very a little bit dusted, a little bit antiquated, a little bit too much 50 and up. And we needed young blood, we needed inspiration, and we also needed to be future ready. And so I created a program where, two young professionals from the member organizations could join, and they could challenge us, and they could join our events, and they actually organized events and so on. And that was really rewarding. Now, did I do this in my PNG day time? No, I didn't. I did this at night or at weekends, where I organized this, put the one-pagers together, invited everybody, had the meetings. But it gave me so much that it was really a great investment. And this Young Professionals Network is still very much alive. The second thing I did is I brought female executives together, for example, also at MCHEM events, but also at other things that I did here with the CEO of Accenture at a female executive lunch, where we exchanged and bonded and created networks. And then I was also asked, and this is the get. I give, but you also get. I was also asked to join some really fantastic executive networks. And one you see here is actually, I had asked, I told you, to be seated next to the speaker at the main table. And that was one of my friends here, who then asked me to join one of her executive networks. And that is how I joined then other networks. And we are really trying to break the glass ceiling and empower women. Focus currently on Germany, but we are expanding to Europe. Now, therefore, I want to say that you need to ask yourself, if you want to network, what is the next event you will attend? What is interesting for you, which topics, which organizations, look at their websites, and then pick out an event. Make a promise now and say, this year, I will attend one event that has not been on my list beforehand, and then follow those steps. Think about how you prepare for it. How you look at, like I shared, how you look at the list of attendees and so on. Then how do you bond with others during the event? Up front, by connecting with them, or once you're there? Who do you want to meet? What do you want to get out? And then ask yourself also, how can you contribute? Now, that takes me to my last slide, where I just want to summarize what I have just shared. So exchanging business cards is not enough. You need to engage their hearts and their minds. Second, have a plan. Don't just go there. Third, be present and stand out. Don't go to an event and stay in the sideline. Go in the middle of it. Go approach people. Go talk to people. Go introduce yourself. Because you want to get something out of it. And then be open. Networking is like a slot machine. I think you remember those pictures. And really, I believe in it. Give and the get will come. And frankly, I enjoy giving so much that I don't care about the get, because I just get so much out of it when I can help people and bring people together. But also, my Thanksgiving dinner story, be demanding. And then you can, and actually you should, also work on creating networks yourself. So with this one, I want to thank you, break the bias, on joining me here on International Women's Day today and listening to me. And I will hand back to Iljana for questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So many great tips that I wish I would have had many, many, many years ago. And I ask our audience, if you have any questions, please to put them in the chat. I know that I have several myself, Isabel, and in a way, before we started the webinar today, we were talking about, I'm an introvert, and for a very, very long time, although I was encouraged by my managers to network and to build relationships, it was something that I couldn't get myself to do, because as an introvert, it's awkward. It's like, how do I approach it? What do I say? Like, a lot of the things that you share here would have been valuable at the time. But how do you, like, people that are introverts that are still don't know how to get that first step? Like, what do you say would be that first recommendation in terms of how to approach it, so that it's not as awkward as one would think?
Yeah. I think the easiest is probably to not go to an event completely by yourself, but to find somebody who joins you. It has always been more fun when I went with Gabi or Heidi or Sonja or Christoph or somebody to an Ottmar to an MCHAM event than to completely go by myself. So if you have somebody that is kind of a safe base, you can always go back to when you are not in a conversation, don't know what to do. That is that makes you feel better. And secondly, what you can also do is you connect with the one or the other person up front. Say, hey, I've seen you also coming to this event. I would really love to meet you and talk to you about this. Would you have some time? And perhaps you can meet that person for a coffee beforehand. I think you need to feel a little bit more comfortable before you go into a big room with coffee tables set up and hundreds of people and you don't know where to go. So having somebody like an anchor point where you can go to is definitely something that I would recommend.
Thank you. Thank you. That's absolutely a great tip. I remember that somebody else in my first networking event, I went on my own because there was nobody that could go with me, and I had to get on a train and figure out how to get there. It was a long story, but what they told me was, it is a networking event and everybody's there to network. Like, that's the objective, for people that don't know each other to get to know each other. So just having that mindset sort of put myself at ease that, okay, I'm not doing something weird here that nobody else is doing. We're all here to talk to somebody that you don't know. So that at least helped me through when I had nobody else. It was just me, myself, and I in this big room of people I did not know. But yes,
yeah,
join
and, I think this is very true, and that's why when I observed how the guys did it, I thought, I was kind of learning from just observing and joining conversations, just approaching people I didn't know. I really had to force myself sometimes out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
But once you do it, you realize, oh, it works. You're a little bit surprised at first, and then you see it works. And then you do it again and again and again, and then it works better.
Yep. Yep. Also, we are living, I mean, because of COVID, but that I don't think will go away. This virtual environment, which has opened up extraordinary opportunities and exciting opportunities to be able to build networks in places and with people that probably you would never be able to do, just because of physical, barriers and locations. Have you experienced, a different additional tips or things that you could share on how to network in this virtual environment, when you're not able to stand beside somebody because you're literally standing? Well, you're not standing, you're just like in this 2x2 little square, in a lot of little squares on the screen, and that virtual environment, I don't think it's going away. I think it's still opening up a great, opportunity for all of us to network. But any thoughts, any recommendations from a virtual environment?
I think virtual environments make networking much more difficult. This casual make it much more difficult. So I would normally say that the COVID times and the whole virtual settings have really stopped a lot of the networking activities. But on the other hand, when I look at it positively, I have probably joined many more, in my case, CPO connects, supply chain connects with other companies for an hour or two over the last 2 years than I have ever had time in the past. Because in the past, you would have had, like you say, get on a plane, get on a train, get on a bus, go somewhere, spend 1 or 2 days there. And this is a really big investment. The alternative that we had now for the last 2 years was you just hop on a call for 1 hour or 2 and you meet people, you exchange. And, I think these connects are often done really well. And this is how I got to know many more people. Now, I think then again, networking, you need to follow up. You check them up on LinkedIn, you send them a little message, you might have a topic, you ask them a question, you say, hey, I'm really interested, can we connect on this topic? This is then the new format of networking. By picking them, like singling them out, the people that you're interested in meeting, and then trying to connect with them separately.
Yes, definitely. It's a new way of doing things that we are reinventing. Hopefully, as the world opens up, we're back to at least a hybrid where we can still meet, people in person, build those relationships, but then continue reaching out to others that we wouldn't otherwise. Very, very valuable tips. I have here a more of a comment, but I do want to read it out from Deb Kilty. Such valuable tips, Isabel. So many women miss opportunities in networking, which I completely agree. Your comment on feeling rude for stepping into conversations is so true. Men do it all the time, and many women find it rude. As women get more, as women get more experience in networking, it definitely gets easier with a question mark, like, yes. And she loves your statement that you're not my competition, you're my sister. She found it helpful to also go up to women wallflowers and speak and encourage them to go, with her to meet the speaker. And I think that goes to your point of those of us that are in this, we can also provide those spaces and help others stand out. If we are more comfortable now with networking, definitely then help others elevate their voice and be able to be seen and have that visibility that maybe for now might be a little bit challenging. There's another question here. How to send messages upfront an event without appearing like someone who is just selling or have only a business interest in the network?
That is definitely a fine line to walk. Yeah. I was recently at a conference, or it was like a summit, and a lot of companies who wanted to get in touch with me and sell me something got in touch up front, and you get kind of hundreds of requests and you cannot answer them all. So how do you stand out is definitely challenging. I would always try to also find a personal angle. Yeah, when somebody writes to me, hey, Isabel, I saw your speech at the procurement summit in Berlin, and what I loved about it was this and that, and I would really like to exchange more with you on that opportunity. I'm much more inclined to connect and to meet that person than if somebody says, hey, Hochgesand, Isabel, I want to sell you something. Yeah. And I do think that these conferences, especially like at the AmCham, you need to think a little bit around the corner, like this Ford guy. Yeah, I went with Heidi through the list of people who are there, and I said, who would you like to meet? And then we came up with this assembled and assembled. And she's like, oh, this could be fun. So then we went to him and we had that conversation, and it was a fun conversation to have. And he was really intrigued by the idea that he makes cars, we make diapers, and we have something in common. Yeah. And then they talk about their grandchildren and all of that. So, but then you have a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. From your different stories, it looks like you were able to overcome ethnic diversity and different cultures as well and navigate those differences. Was this a bigger challenge as a woman, and how did you succeed?
I think it's a good question. I was just talking to our head of diversity and inclusion the other day about, our 25, 30 years of experience. And 25, 30 years ago, it was more difficult. I was sent to Japan to negotiate with Japanese suppliers without having any cultural diversity training or without knowing anything about it. I think today we are much more traveled, much more knowledgeable, much more connected, and also much more aware of the cultural differences. But I think it is also a personal thing, whether you put yourself in their shoes. At PNG, there was also one of the best trainings I've ever done, was the first Women Supporting Women training. It was a full week in somewhere close to Geneva. And also we talked about biases and so on. And I did not realize up to that point that whenever I walked into a room, no matter whether people knew me or not, I would come with baggage. People would have some opinion about me. Yeah, and that's what I then tried to reflect in my work. So when I meet, for example, a new supplier, difficult situation, what do they know about me as a person? What do they know about my company? What do they know about my background? And how can I proactively address that? And then secondly, when I joined, for example, Beiersdorf, nobody knew me, but they knew me, right? Oh, she's from PNG, and oh, she lived in the US, and oh, she's a woman, and oh, whatever. So in my first address, my first town hall to the organization, I addressed that. I said, you might think I am, but I'm like this, and this is what I stand for, and so on. So I think you need to be very conscious about it, and this is also what today is all about, the break the bias. You need to be really conscious about it, and then address it. And the same for me is true with religion, ethnicity, and so on.
Yes, thank you. The great tips. And I think to your point, it's something that we need to become more conscious as we continue in this evolved world. Another question, great content, Isabel, thank you so much. How do you encourage other women to step out of their comfort zone when networking? Do you mentor? Do you coach them individually? Some might not dare to raise their voice, although you know that your tips work well. Maybe do you have some tips that we can all apply to encourage our sisters?
I like the sisters thing. Actually, at Beiersdorf, we formed a Sisterhood is Power network where all the women are getting together, and that is fantastic. And every board member and so on comes and speaks. And I also spoke about something like today, and it was so great because then afterwards, young women connected with me and said, I would never have dared to connect with you, but now that I heard your stories, I have a question. Do you have some time? And so I have a lot of coffees, or pre-COVID coffees, now virtual, just to help. I think networking and supporting each other is super, super important. So if in your company, in your environment, you don't have a network you belong in, look for one or create one. I think this is, and then create the sisterhood. Start supporting each other and open up to each other. Yeah. Secondly, when I meet new women in business, I don't start with the business problem. I start with a personal conversation. Who are you? Tell me. Let's onboard. Let me tell you about myself, and connect on some personal things, because this builds the foundation. And that's what women often don't do. They don't want to be vulnerable. They want to be the tough cookies and just go right into it. No, show your vulnerability, show your emotions, and share something about you. I think this, for me, this has always worked out. And last but not least, I have recently created here in Germany a cross-company networking program with one of my executive groups. And this was created to bring women through the glass ceiling into board positions. But actually, this is a two-way street, we realize. We get so much back from mentoring these women from other companies, other industries, understanding their challenges, helping them to address them differently, to ask the questions differently, to become more demanding, that we said, wow, you know, this is a gift for us, while our mentees think it's a gift for them, but actually it's the other way around. We love it so much. So, you know, it's again this point I had, give, 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 and the get will come.
Awesome. Well, we have time for a couple of minutes for one last question before we had to close this incredible session.
Sure.
And I think you sort of started it with your last answer. How do you see a difference between mentoring and championing and the respective impact?
I think there's, mentoring, championing, sponsoring, and people have different definitions of it. For me, mentoring is being a confidential go-to person where you can ask any kind of question and you can get very honest advice. So that for me is a mentoring relationship. Sponsoring and championing is when I then stand up for a woman in a meeting, and I'm officially the sponsor for the career, and I'm invited to career discussions and so on. Yeah. But I think the lines are sometimes a little bit blurry. I would say I'm a champion of all women, and I want to speak up for all women. So when we are in succession planning discussions and there are no women on the list, I will speak up. When I see there is a woman missing who I think should get the job, I will speak up. And for me, this is also kind of sponsorship or championship.
Thank you. Thank you again, Isabel, for taking us through these wonderful tips today. So important on this day to help us break the bias and then just continue moving forward for all of us. So thank you so, so much. Let me share my screen again. There we go. Get involved, please get involved. Very important talking about networking. This is a great, great network, global network where all of us can continue to build and support each other. Sign up for updates, pgalums.com, support our foundation, especially today. Partner with us, send us an email at sponsor@pgalums.com and volunteer, start, join a chapter, create your own network like Isabel shared with us today, and send us an email with any other thoughts that you may have at hello@pgalums.com. You can also access this and all past recordings both in our PNG Alums website and on our YouTube page also, so that you can see, again, all the wonderful tips that Isabel shared with us, plus all the other webinars that we've had in the past. Send us an email, connect with us. And I invite you to join us next month with Lisa Gable, who will share with us how to use your expertise to give back with purpose and joy. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Isabel, so much. And I wish you all the best wherever in the world you are. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Bye.